next presenter is Casey Melvin. She's going to be talking about 3D printing and Web 3.0 for her on-demand custom jewelry business. Casey has a really interesting background. She was actually in law school prior to founding the Future of Jewelry, and now she is the CEO of that company, which is an on-demand custom jewelry company. So I will be bringing Casey on stage here. We will get her started.
Hi, Melanie.
Hi, Casey. Thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm so excited to be here.
I will turn it over to you.
Great. Well, first I want to start off and say thank you to you and Women in 3D Printing and all the volunteers that I know put so much time and effort into this. It's been an amazing event, and I'm honored to speak at it at the second inaugural. So I guess we can kick it off. So I am Casey Melvin. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Future of Jewelry. We are an on-demand custom jewelry company specializing currently in signet rings. Today we're going to discuss 3D printing, Web 3.0, and mass customization production methods as it relates to jewelry. And before we start today, I wanted to start with a quote that I thought was really poignant for our talk today. And it's from the jewelry scholar George Frederick Koons, and he wrote this about 100 years ago in 1917 during the initial adoption of mass-produced jewelry, and he gave this kind of warning. He said, "The making of finger rings, as well as of everything else, has been strongly influenced by mass production. Cloth is machined, pictures are lithographed, lace, macaroni, and even small houses are now produced with an exactness that was never before possible. But unfortunately, with the dominance of mass-made products, the artistic quality is entirely obliterated. Rings are now made in such vast quantities that exactness of reproduction is the great aim. Thus, while the initial design may possess a certain measure of originality, the single ring of the type, one out of thousands or tens of thousands stamped out of the same model, necessarily lacks that personal touch which alone can produce a truly artistic object." And when I read this, I feel like that sentiment is the exact one that the Future of Jewelry is trying to reproduce using technology and making it more affordable and democratizing accessibility to custom jewelry and allowing the customer to take part in the process. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. We're going to standard. Uh-oh. Why is it? Oh. Okay. Okay, so let's start off by defining some of the terms we're going to use today. So first, let's talk about craft production versus mass customization and what the nuances of those are. So craft production refers to anything that's made by hand. And so this was primarily used before the Industrial Revolution, when we were mostly an agrarian economy and there was no mass production of jewelry of any sorts. So they produce small volumes at high unit costs because of the high cost of skill and craftsmanship necessary to produce one-of-a-kind pieces. So then when I talk about mass production, the primary goal is to produce standardized products that everyone can afford. It's post-industrialization, and the main goal is economy of scale. There's low mix, high volume, low unit costs, and during this time, there was a big shift from farms to factories. The main goal was to have generic standardized products that serve a broad market at a very low cost. And when I refer to mass customization, the primary goal is to produce enough variety in the product or services, like the custom jewelry we're talking about today, so that everyone can find exactly what they want. And this is a combination kind of both the craft production and mass production methods, where there's a high mix but there's also a high volume at a low to equal unit cost from previous methods. And there's no inventory. That means everything is produced on demand, because to be a truly custom product, you can't really have any inventory. So when I talk 3.0, that's kind of it's a really broad term. It's a buzzword these days, and it means a lot of different things to different people. But when I'm talking about it today, I'm talking about it in terms of moving away from big tech. So if we think about Web 1.0, that was in the early 90s. We all remember it. There's mostly like static websites, HTML. It was simple, but it was not easy to navigate. So that's when Web 2.0 came in the early 2000s. You think Google, Amazon, Facebook, those types of companies. The rise of big tech was driven by mobile internet, powerful smartphones, local network or social networks, accelerated e-commerce, etc. And so Web 3.0 is it's a combination of Web 1 and 2.0, which combines the no gatekeepers. So they're like, we'll be getting away from big tech rather than having them as gatekeepers. And what that actually does is it opens up direct lines of communication with customers, and you're able to hear more from them and serve them in a better way, rather than having Facebook or Amazon be in control of your customer data. So when I talk about Web 3.0, I'm talking about moving away from big tech and towards privacy. When I talk about the future of jewelry, I kind of like to tell the founding story, because it really gives a good idea of what inspired us to actually quit law school and try to start this company on our own. So it was the summer of 2016. As Melanie said, I was in law school, and my sister was as well. And we just finished our first year exams, and we had been accepted to study abroad that summer. So my sister and I took advantage of every single thing we could. We took advantage of the cheap flights from Great Britain, and we traveled everywhere we could in Europe every weekend. We would take the cheapest flight that we could on EasyJet. We had such a good summer together, studying and exploring Europe like we had never done before. So we wanted to buy something together to really mark the experience, something that would make us remember the trip and just like how close we were getting as sisters. So the one weekend we were walking around in Palma de Mallorca, and we entered into a small family-owned jewelry store. And my sister spotted the signet ring, a plain gold signet ring. And as I said, we were going to be lawyers. So it's kind of a conservative profession. You can't really wear like gaudy jewelry or anything like that. So it's like a plain gold signet ring is something that really lasts the test of time, and that we could wear all the time. So my sister spotted it first, and she asked the jeweler to take it out of the case, and it didn't fit her. She actually has really, really small fingers, a US size 4.5. So I like the ring as well. So I said, if it fits me, I'm going to get it. So I tried it on my right ring finger, and it fit me perfectly. So then the family jeweler asked us if we would like to watch him as he hand etched our initials my initials out of the front. I'm sorry. And my sister and I had such a good time watching him with his artisanship and his tools. And it was a really special experience. And I said to Nina, I bet you will be able to find something similar for you in your specific size online and within our price range. And we'll get you one, and we'll still remember this experience together. So the summer ended. We went back to Ohio law schools. It was very cold. And I loved the ring. I never took it off. Every time I looked at it, it reminded me of the great summer we had, and it really meant a lot to me. So I think Nina had forgotten about the ring, but I wanted to get her something for Christmas. I wanted to surprise her with the signet ring. So I started to do research, and I wanted to see what types of options were out there within Nina's size and my price range. So this is the signet ring. Like I said, it was around 300 euros. It was 14 karat solid gold, and a size 8. So that's the inspiration, but we're looking for a much smaller size, and also in our price range. So we found a lot of failed options. So one of the first options is a very expensive ring, $2,300, way out of my price range. And it does have a significant amount of sizes, but it costs extra to engrave, and you can't return it. The second option was definitely a little bit more my speed, $169, but it only had 3 sizes, and it could not be resized because it wasn't a solid precious metal ring. And the third one was even more limited in sizing and even cheaper, and it could not be resized and had limited customization options. So these are like 3 of the really 3 of the ones that I found while I was looking for this. So we started to do research, my sister and I, and what we found was signet rings have been around for literally thousands of years. So of the rings up on your screen right now, they span from around 2000 BC to 15 AD or 1500 AD. So they've multi-cultures, time zones, eras, like kings have worn them. They're mentioned in the Bible, and they're mentioned in the Numa Elish. There's several historical documents that these have been really important in the history of the world. And so they've been made actually the same way for thousands of years. Up until the Industrial Revolution, every piece was custom. And only in the Industrial Revolution, with the rise of mass production methods and specialized machines to up the input, every single one was custom. Oops, oopsie. Oopsie. Oops. I don't know. I'm sorry if that's a little loud for everybody, but so here are some of the ways that signet rings have been made throughout the years. The first in the top left, if you look, that's the first step when someone has to iterate and draw what they're going to etch into the signet ring. To the top right, that is a signet ring being made by hand by an artisan jeweler using methods that have literally been around for thousands of years. That's when they can customize the size. And they just make a plain top and fit it to the user. On the bottom left, that's when they start hand etching in the signet ring with the designs on the front. And in the bottom right, that's more of a hybrid method where they do something similar to the first 2 steps, but they finish it with subtractive manufacturing and with engraving, automated engraving. So at the Future of Jewelry, we developed a hybrid approach. So it's really based on our core competency, which is our web-based 3D signet ring configurator, which was built for the Nog designer. If you look to the screenshot to the right, I uploaded the TIPE logo into our customizer on our website, and you can immediately see it on the ring and interact with the ring and make adjustments as necessary or switch between rings. And you don't need any 3D design experience whatsoever, although I know many of the people in this crowd probably have a lot of it. It was very important for my sister and I for our platform to be easily accessible and built for the non-designer and not complicated. So you don't need to have any design experience, jewelry design or 3D modeling experience at all. Our ring design platform affords the customer the ability to design his custom ring in seconds. Oops. So here's our configurator. It was important for based on the web because, as many of you know, keeping up an Android and iOS native app is difficult, prone to bugs, and it also limits your audience. So it was very important for us for our configurator to be easy to use, lightweight, available on the web, and super fast and user intuitive. So the first thing when you enter the site, you can play and interact with the first ring that comes up, although we do have other shapes as well that you can switch between in real time. We also have an option to modify the band. So for a little bit cheaper, we can have our logo on the side of the ring. And as you can see, the live dynamic pricing updates in real time. And it's based on material volume and the price of the precious metal on that day. So that is updated daily, so that you know that everything's transparent. You're not getting ripped off. You know, a size 3 and a size 12, if you know, there's a lot more profit made on one than not the other. So this is really, it shows you exactly what you're paying. We're making the exact same profit on every ring, depending on the standardized for the customization areas, of course. So that's based on dynamic pricing. We also have 14 karat gold, white gold, and rose. And this is my favorite part, and this is a newer feature within the last 6 months, where we have automated the sizing to the 1/10 of a millimeter. So this, you can see the slider here, and as the dynamic pricing, you can to the 1/10 of a millimeter. So this, our automatic algorithm on our back end automatically is able to generate 104 sizes to the 1/10 of a millimeter between what would be like a US 3 and a 15.5. So that's the first step of just like picking your base. And then we also have a lot of apps that we built on top of this. One of my favorites is the upload feature. So you pick the design area, upload, my computer. Good. As you can see it right in live in time. And we also have the engrave feature where it shows the inverse rather than it protruding. So on the left, there's a printability check. where it doesn't catch 100%, but it is about 90% accurate catching the non-printable designs. And we did find that there is some discrepancies between the embossed designs and the engraved, but this is what we build into our printability algorithm. So then you can add to cart. And check out right there. Oopsie. So 3D printing in customized products like custom jewelry will be driving the next wave of innovation, but there are some points that need to be said, that the customization is not just a novelty, it actually creates actual value for the consumers. So one thing I think that adds definite value is our precise sizing algorithm versus the standardized ring sizes, which are really just a relic of mass production. So we're going back to the totally custom pieces, and there also needs to be ease of customization so that we can collect that information directly from the customer, that there's a fast, user-friendly online interactive configurator to gather that information, and the dynamic pricing algorithm to control cost of customization. So our process right now, as I told you, we're printing in precious metal, or our final product is in precious metals, but we initially print into 3D into wax resin on a DLP printer, a high resolution DLP printer. These are some of the ones that we have printed so far. This one on the right is one of my favorite ones. We added a Braille option to our libraries where there's the alphabet that you can add to the ring and interact with in real time. And then we cast into sterling silver. So here are some of the ones that we have printed so far, that we did samples for media companies. And this is one of my favorite ones, adding someone's signature. And you can see how accurate that is, and based on the representation in the web app. So I'll leave my contact information. That's my presentation for today. So I look forward to any questions you may have. Thank you very much.
We do have a few questions in the Q&A. And if anyone has more questions, put them in there. We have a couple minutes for questions. I'll read these to you, Casey. The first one is, would you be able to offer more details about the manufacturing process or technology for your rings?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's two parts. There's one where the customer gets to obviously customize their ring and interact with it and visualize it in real time. And that's done on our front end using like a lightweight 3D graphics software. And then once the customer checks out, on our back end, a STL file that was based on the representation is generated automatically based on the size that the user picked. So our backend obviously generates an STL file, which is ubiquitous, or could be ubiquitously used in any 3D printer, given if it was within constraints, of course. So we look forward to expanding into other materials as well. But right now, ours is like a pretty basic process of printing in wax and then casting into the precious metal that the user prescribed with their order.
Okay, awesome. And then the second question is, how do you see large 3D printing companies getting involved in this space?
Well, I think that some of them are involved in this space, but what I see that will be our main advantage is just how specific that our use case is. So jewelry, especially something with high precious metal, materials that are such high value, you need special machines, you need it's a lot more, different steps that you need to go through to keep the material and things like that. So yeah, that's how I just lost my train of thought. Oh my gosh. So 3D printing companies are involved in this space. I was also thinking about larger jewelry companies getting into this space, and I do think that they have a bit of a legacy disadvantage because of their entrenched supply chain and inventories, and just their entire business model is based on methods and materials of lore. So we want to specialize in being lean, no inventory, and giving all the power to the customer, and being completely transparent and democratizing the process.
Okay, awesome. Question is coming in about larger sizes. Do you make large sizes like 22 or 24?
So if you're like a US 24, because I know we do go to 24 millimeter diameter, if that's what you're asking. Because 15 and a half is like bigger than an inch, I think.
Okay, and then
but anyway, the process is automated. We picked those, but we could have made them bigger or smaller, but we thought we were getting a really large swath of the population.
Okay, and then the next question is, what do you think about the value of artisanship versus personalization and affordability?
Oh, I absolutely value artisanship. I don't think anyone is, I don't think the future jewelry takes away from that at all, especially because the cost of artisanship is high. So the people that I am trying to open custom jewelry up to, maybe they wouldn't be able to afford, and the cost of sitting down with a custom jeweler for hours and, sketching out something, that's hours, that's time that, that adds up. And so I feel like this is just broadening the swath of the population that will have access to custom jewelry, rather than like siphoning away customers, or taking away from the artisanship of that ancient craft, which I'm in awe of, I love, but it's expensive and not everyone can afford it. So it was important to us to, make it widely available.
Okay, great. And speaking of an ancient kind of process, the last question here is, do you see a future where the ring itself is printed and not just the mold to be later processed?
Yeah, absolutely. And we actually did visit we visited Cooks and Gold, which had partnered with EOS to develop a precious metal direct metal laser printer from Cooks and Gold. So we did have some test pieces printed, and we're really interested in that, but we're trying to really focus on customer education, teaching them about our platform, building brand awareness, and then we've always had plans to expand into other processes, other materials. And that would be honestly my end goal when it gets to the point where it's fast enough and the machines are reliable enough and precise enough.
Okay, awesome. Well, Casey, thank you so much for joining us today. That was an awesome presentation. I know I definitely learned a lot, especially on the history side. So thanks for all you do, and thanks for your presentation.
No, I really appreciate it, Melanie. Thank you so much for leading the industry track. I look forward to seeing the rest of the speakers.